You're listening to the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast on love, marriage, and personal development. Our purpose is to inspire and equip you with knowledge and skills to enable you to have lasting and fulfilling relationships. Now, your host, Joshua Margaret.
Hello. This is our Marriage Clinic podcast. We're bringing all the energy in today. I'm extremely excited to be with you this evening. It should be 8 p.m. if you are in Ghana or if you are within our time zone. From whichever time zone you are watching, you are welcome, or listening, you are welcome. Today, I'm excited. This is the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast about love, a podcast about relationships, marriage, and your personal development. And my name is Joshua Mogri, and I am glad you're taking the time to listen to what we have today. Let me give you a moment to kindly share this with friends, to put this out there. The more people you give this to and you recommend us to, the more people who can be touched and blessed by the Marriage Clinic podcast and lives become better. It's coming to you for free, so please give it to someone for free, all right? Today, I was telling the team just before we started recording that this subject is a heavy subject. And I debated in my mind if I should do this series or not. Because this is a series about love, this is a series about marriage, but sometimes marriage does not work out. So I'm starting a rather strange series, but I think it's going to be important for all of us. And the next probably 3 or 4 episodes, are going to be on when it comes to divorce. If you have a friend or a family member that's considering a divorce, please share these next 4 episodes with them and let them come to an informed decision if that is the best choice for them. And even if it is the best choice for them, I will share some information that will help make the transition better. So get in here, focus in here. We are starting something interesting. When it comes to divorce, I've witnessed at close range divorce and separation. I'm the product of my parents separated. They probably didn't have an official divorce, even though they filed papers at a point, but I'm a product of a divorced home or a broken home, so it's not a subject that I come to lightly. So it's ironic that a child from a broken home is now creating podcasts and content that is helping marriages to stay together. Hey, but that's the way the God we serve works. So one thing you need to remember is that anybody who has been married for more than 10 minutes has considered divorce. When you go through a problem in the marriage, there's the tendency to say, maybe my life would have been easier if I was divorced. You get it? So if you are married and probably you are listening to this and you are going through a big problem, you probably have not been talking to each other for a couple of days, and you are there sitting in your car, or you are sitting in the office and you are saying, maybe if we ended this marriage, it will be easier. You are not alone, and a lot of people think about these things, all right? And for some people, divorce is a constant threat. I know people who, every time there's a fight, one partner says, maybe we should get divorced. So you see it being thrown. And a lot of the time, it's sad to say, but a lot of the time, it is the woman that throw the divorce word out there. I'm a scientist, so let me make some clarification. In my practice and in my counseling of marriages, I realize that women threaten divorce a lot more than men do. And in fact, the statistics actually do prove, I think it's close to 80% of filing of divorce is done by women. All right? So a lot of the time, the man is threatened with divorce, divorce, divorce. And sometimes the woman is also threatened with divorce. And there are times you feel like there is no hope for the marriage, and it's sad. There are also times where there is grounds for divorce. In latter episodes, there are some situations where I advise couples, you need to get a divorce, and you need to get a divorce quickly. So I'm not totally against the concept of divorce. I just think that divorce should not be an issue we approach lightly. So I'm going to give you 10 reasons to reconsider the divorce you want to go for. 10 reasons to reconsider the divorce you want to go for. Reason number 1, divorce will hurt your children. Divorce will hurt your children. Look, I'm in my late 30s and I still feel the pain of my parents' divorce. I'm a grown man, I have my own kids, I've been married for well over a decade, but I still feel the pain and the regret of my parents separating. In fact, I think it was 2 days ago, I was driving down the street and I remembered the last time I saw my father and mother in the same place as husband and wife. They were having a fight over, if you're African, they were having a fight over cow legs. I won't go into the story, but that issue came and that was when he was finally packing out. And I remember him picking his bags and saying, I'm leaving you and the kids. And well, long story, someday I'll share the story, but I am well into my 30s. And this happened when I think I was about 7 years old. I'm well into my 30s. It's over 30 years ago, but that memory is still so fresh in my mind. So what am I saying? Divorce will always hurt the kids. So before you jump into saying I want a divorce, please do think about the children that are in the marriage. They will never get over the loss of their family, and their lives will never be the same. That's the truth. When parents start living separately, your children's lives are turned upside down. And the children now have to begin to decide, what can I say in front of this parent and what can I say in front of that parent? What can I report to this one? So the children now have to grow up in a way that they are not ready for. It brings about long-lasting financial, emotional, developmental, academic, and psychological repercussions. So before you jump at, I'm going to divorce you, remember that it's not a decision you are making for you alone. It is a decision you are making for yourself and for your children. That's number 1. Number 2, divorce will bring you emotional devastation. I've counseled several people after they have received the final judgment of their divorce. When the judge finally says we are dissolving the marriage, I've counseled so many people and I have never met one who jubilates. I've never met one who shoots confetti into the skies and throws balloons and says, hey, I'm divorced. You see, when you finally do get the divorce, you realize that it's fool's gold. It does not give you the emotional reward that you thought you would get from the divorce. It separates us from the person we believed we were going to spend the rest of our lives with. The person we held hands with, the person we slipped a ring onto their finger, the person that we swore before our families and before God that through the good and the bad we will stick with them. And when that is ripped apart, it brings about emotional devastation. Emotional devastation. All right? And you may deny it. And when people are pushing you to go for a divorce, they may deny it. But the truth is, there is always emotional pain. And it doesn't go away just because a sheet of paper says you are no longer together. Divorce is like a type of death. And you will need to grieve the loss of the relationship just as you would if somebody had died. I was talking to my cousin Pamela. She's lost her parents and I've lost my dad. And we are talking about the loss of death, the loss of a parent. And I said something to her. We are sitting in front of the house. I said, you know what? You never really get over the loss of a parent. You just learn to live with it. You never really get over the loss of a parent. You just learn to cope. You learn how to push the thoughts out of your mind quickly. But there are days you still wake up and you are very sad about it, and you keep asking the what if. What if he was still alive? What if this had not happened? And it's the same thing for a relationship. When you come out of a marriage, you will continue to grieve the loss of that marriage for several years. It's not as easy as you think it is. Brings me to number 3. Number 3. Divorce brings about the loss of an identity. True story. I was having a meeting, and one of the people in the meeting is divorced. Okay. And I said, okay, can I have all the married people do this? Because we wanted to be able to schedule the single and the married people and give timing that would help both groups. So I said, can I have all the married people? And she unconsciously got up and went to the married people's side. I was too polite to say, honey, please, could you move to the left? But that identity when you get a divorce goes. And especially if you live in the African society, where when they greet you, the next thing they do is they ask about your wife or your husband, and then they ask about the children. The moment they see you at a certain age, how are you? And how is the wife? And how are the children? And you can't keep repeating to everybody, last month I was married, this month I'm not. So there's a certain loss of identity. Even taking off the ring is an emotional thing. So before you decide to go for the divorce, remember that you will experience the loss of identity. When divorce happens, both individuals lose the familiar role of husband and wife. You may be a father, but you are no longer a husband. Even if the marriage is troubled, there's still a certain security knowing that there's somebody you are married to. I've met people who are fighting like cats and dogs. I mean, they are at it. But when the lady has an issue and the husband shows up, and when the woman has an issue, the wife shows up. So that identity goes. We're discussing the points together before we started, and one of the young people said, based on the things you are talking about, it looks like it's easier to work on the marriage than get a divorce. And that's true. All right? That is true. You experience a loss of identity. You lose your identity in it. Then number 4, when you have a divorce, you lose a lot of assistance. You lose a lot of assistance. What do I mean by you lose a lot of assistance? Let me use this morning as an example. Well, this morning I had to go to a radio station to do a talk. So when I woke up, I asked my wife, I said, could you fix a meal for the kids? They're on vacation. I'm going to have to keep them. But I said, so you leave for, let me go do this thing in the radio station. Then I'm going to come back. And then I'll pick up the kids, and then you can go to work because she's running some trainings. I mean, my wife is a career woman, so. And so I said, my schedule is a little bit more relaxed today, so I can take them to work. So we actually met on the road, and they jumped out of her car and jumped into my car. That's assistance. In a divorced couple, you now have to ask yourself, where am I going to put the kids? Am I going to pay for childcare? How sure am I that the person that I'm leaving the kids with are actually going to have the kids' best interest at heart? You are never really sure. When your children are with your wife or your children are with your husband, you know when they are hungry, he will feed them. When they are tired, if they get dirty, he will give them a bath. If there's an emergency, he will rush them to the hospital. But you lose that assistance the moment you choose to get divorced. You lose the assistance of errands and husbands know this. They call, when coming home, stop and buy bread. My car has a flat tire. Could you work on it? The husband is calling the wife. Could you help me? Could you pick out these clothes and meet me at the airport? You see, in marriage, your lives become so entwined that you keep doing things, especially the longer you've been married, you keep doing things for each other so much that when you rip apart in divorce, you will be surprised at how much work there is out there and how much your partner was putting in there. Because he buys the gas, you do the groceries. Now, as a man, you now have to be looking for someone to go into the market. And when you get into the market, you don't know where the tomato lane is. You don't know where the fish lane is. You have no idea whether meat is sold in pounds or in kilos. And you are all over the place. Now, when you go to the mechanic, you don't know whether it's an oil change problem. You don't know whether it's an electrical problem or it's a mechanical problem. Because every time he will just take the car and bring it back and it's in good. Now there are buttons missing from your shirt and you don't even know where the needle and thread is. Because as you've moved together, even when you have issues, there are things you've learned to do with each other. And the moment you rip apart in divorce, those things are gone. All right? You lose out on the physical security. I know women say, I don't need a man. I hear feminists talk, you don't need a man. But believe you me, whenever there's a noise outside in the middle of the night, my wife gives me an elbow and say, go and see what's going on. When I hear the dogs barking, I don't tap my wife and say, can you check and see if there's an intruder? No. I step out. Whenever we are going to bed, I go around the whole house and make sure every door is locked. Make sure the padlocks are in place. Make sure the dogs have been released. Make sure that the security man has been spoken to and greeted. And vice versa. There are things I haven't bothered myself about for the last 10 years, using myself as an example, simply because I have a loving wife. So you miss out on that physical security. You miss out on domestic assistance. And you miss out on sexual access. She's lying right by you. He's lying right by you. You say, well, Josh, you don't know my wife. I haven't had access to the throne room for the last 2 months. My brother, I'm sorry. I'll do a podcast to help you. But believe you me, they once did a study about sex. And the amount of sex that married people have cannot be compared with single people. Single people have sex in gluts. She's come to visit for 3 days. And you try to put your 4 months stress within the last 3 days. The single people behind the cameras are smiling. God forgive you. All right? But you lose sexual access. And even if you don't lose sexual access, you lose the peace of mind that comes with sex. Because when you are married to someone, there's no guilt that comes along with sleeping with the person. You could finish a Bible study and hop onto your partner. In fact, you could be speaking in tongues and the next moment hop onto your partner. But you can't do that when you are single. So you lose sexual access. Goodness me, we're running out of time. I'll only be able to do 5 and I'll do another 5. Number 5 is that the custody battle is hell. Who keeps the children? Dealing with a couple right now. The man says he can take care of the kids. The lady says you can't. Their lawyers are both at each other's throats. And they are holding their breath because they are not sure who is going to have the kids. And you see, fighting over children will change everyone's life. How do you explain to your 7-year-old that tell the judge that mommy is not a good mother and you want to live with me? What does it do to a child? And where do they stay? Do you move out and leave them in the house? And you see, there is no guarantee that the woman gets the kids. There used to be a time where there was a guarantee there's no guarantee the woman gets the kids. Okay? And do you really want your kids to be raised by another man, calling another man daddy? As you are thinking about these problems, you are gradually realizing that it may be better to work at the marriage. Don't worry. By the third episode, if your mind is made up, I'm going to give you tips. I'm going to tell you what grounds give you the grounds you have and so on and so forth. Don't worry, we'll come to that. But this is the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast about love, a podcast about relationships, a podcast about marriage and your personal development. My name is Joshua Mogri, and today we've been talking about, I said 10 reasons, but I've only been able to give you 5. See me next week. I'm going to give you the next 5, and believe you me, you're going to love this. Catch you next week.